In the stillness of dawn, before the city's hum, there is a lull, a moment when the world holds its breath. In Port Harcourt, Nigeria, a schoolyard wakes to this quiet. Here, the air is thick with anticipation. The scuff of sandals on cement, the sharp call of a teacher's whistle, the laughter of children carried on the wind. These sounds, innocent and bright, form the pulse of a community. Walls rise around this joy, painted in colors meant to comfort, to protect, to last. But what happens when the very thing built to shield becomes the source of unthinkable loss? On that morning, the wall did not warn. There was no ominous crack, no shifting shadow to betray its frailty. For days, rain had drummed on the roof, turning the ground to mud, but the children still played. To them, the wall was just another boundary to race along, to lean against, to sit and swap stories during break. And then, in a heartbeat, the world changed. A sound, softer than thunder, crueler than silence, filled the playground. The wall collapsed, not in heroic defiance, but in surrender. Bricks tumbled, plaster split, dust bloomed. In the chaos, voices rose. Teachers shouting, children crying, parents running from nearby streets. Moments later, 6 children lay still, futures stolen before they had a chance to begin. Others, injured, would carry both scars and questions for a lifetime. One teacher, who ran toward the falling wall, would never walk again. In the aftermath, amid the sirens and sorrow, the wall's secrets began to seep out. It was still under construction, unpaid for, its story unfinished. Yet in its ruin, it spoke volumes. Our team of engineering detectives arrived that day not just to measure, but to listen. To hear what the rubble, the soil, the broken lines could tell us about failure, about negligence disguised as thrift, about corners cut where lives were at stake. Grief is a heavy thing, and on this ground, it hung in the air like the dust from the fallen wall. Parents clung to each other, voices hoarse from weeping. Police kept watch, but the true barrier, the one that failed, could not be restored by tape or warning signs. The wall itself lay sprawled across the playground, its pastel paint smeared with red soil, its promise of protection shattered. For the engineering team, the clues emerged quickly. Out came the tape measures, the rebound hammers, the drone mapping the site from above. Yet the most damning evidence was visible to the naked eye. Where the wall once stood, there was no foundation, no concrete base, no compacted gravel, no steel reinforcement. Just a ribbon of bricks, pressed directly onto waterlogged earth. A recipe for disaster, written before the first stone was laid. A shallow pit dug beside the remnants confirmed the worst. The wall's base was just soil, laterite, loose and soft, made softer by the rains. No sign of any attempt to anchor the structure, no blinding layer to separate brick from earth. This was not engineering. This was hope, masquerading as construction. We spoke with the laborers, hoping for insight, and heard instead the quiet confession of compromise. "Oga say we go manage," one whispered. The contractor, under pressure to save costs, had ordered the work to begin with bricks alone. Cement was expensive. Reinforcement was skipped. There were no drawings, no structural calculations, no oversight from a licensed professional. The contractor's connection to a member of the school board meant no questions were asked, no inspections required. The budget, already tight, was trimmed again and again, until the wall was a shell. Pretty on the outside, hollow within. Parents had voiced their worries. Teachers had noticed the wall was unsteady, especially after rain. One had even written a formal letter to the school's management, warning that the wall leaned dangerously during storms. That letter was never read by those with the power to act. Only after the collapse was it found, gathering dust under a broken desk, one last unheeded warning. The technical autopsy was grim. According to basic safety codes, a boundary wall, especially one around a school, should rest on a reinforced strip footing, typically about 600 millimeters wide. It should have a concrete tie beam at mid-height to resist lateral forces, with vertical reinforcement bars at regular intervals. Water drainage is essential to prevent the soil from softening and washing away beneath the wall's weight. Not a single one of these requirements had been met. Instead, we found a patchwork of substandard materials: mortar mixed without regard for cement ratios, bricks salvaged from a demolition site, a wall stretched to 2.5 meters in height with no expansion joints to relieve stress. In place of true reinforcement, a flimsy steel mesh, meant for fences, not structural walls, was embedded in the mortar. An empty gesture toward safety, testing a segment of the wall that remained upright, revealed its weakness. The compressive strength of the masonry was less than 3 megapascals, barely half what is required for even the most basic non-load-bearing walls. The structure was doomed from the start, a house of cards built on borrowed time. We reconstructed the final moments as best we could, running simulations to understand the collapse. After 3 days of heavy rain, the soil beneath the wall was saturated, its cohesion lost. Water pooled along the base, seeping into every gap and undermining what little stability remained. With no foundation to spread its weight or resist lateral forces, the wall began to tilt outward, its own mass now its enemy. At 11:32 a.m., a group of children paused by the wall. Some leaned against it to tie their shoes, to rest, to talk. That single, innocent act, a child's weight, a moment's pressure, was enough to tip the balance. The wall moved, hesitated, then gave way with a muted crumble. There was no explosion, no dramatic warning, just the soft rush of falling brick and the sudden, terrible silence that followed. In the aftermath, the questions began. How could this happen? Who was responsible? The truth was as clear as it was damning. The wall had been built to save money, not to save lives. The contractor, when questioned, admitted to the shortcuts, but insisted he was only following orders. The school board, in turn, blamed the contractor. The cycle of blame spun on, but for the families who lost children, for the teacher who would never walk again, the answers were cold comfort. The cost of the wall was N$700,000, a sum meant to balance safety and economy. But the true cost, the one paid in human lives, was immeasurable. The school was closed for months, the community left to grieve and to wonder if any lesson could ever be enough. Accountability proved elusive. The contractor was arrested, but soon released. No licensed engineer had ever signed off on the work, so no professional license could be revoked. There was no inspection agency to hold accountable, no regulatory body stepping forward to claim oversight. The tragedy faded from headlines, replaced by fresh scandals and new disasters. Yet the site itself does not forget. Today, where the wall once stood, there is only a plaque, a simple memorial to the children who died, to the teacher who sacrificed, to the community that learned too late the price of negligence. The playground is quieter now, the laughter more hesitant, the boundaries patrolled by memory rather than stone. Why do we tell this story? Because in the world of engineering, every line drawn on paper, every calculation, every signature carries weight. These are not just technical details, they are promises. To build is to make a covenant with the future, to protect those who will trust their lives to what we leave behind. Negligence is not just a failure of skill, it is a failure of empathy, of imagination. To cut corners on a school's wall is to gamble with the lives of children, to treat safety as a luxury rather than a right. The wall in Port Harcourt was not brought down by an act of God or the fury of nature. It was brought down by human choices, by the small, everyday decisions to do less, to check less, to care less. We often think of structural failure as something dramatic: bridges collapsing, towers falling, headlines screaming. But most tragedies in engineering begin quietly. They are whispers. A crack here, a lean there, a letter left unread. They are the warnings we ignore until it is too late. This is the lesson the wall leaves behind. It is a warning not just to engineers, but to all of us, to parents, teachers, regulators, communities. Safety is not negotiable. Integrity is not optional. When we ignore the whispers in the walls, when we treat them as background noise, we invite disaster. For the families who lost children, the pain will never fully fade. For the community, the memory of that day is a scar, a reminder that trust, once broken, is slow to mend. For the engineers who came after, it is a call to vigilance, to never let budget or bureaucracy blind us to what matters most. Structures speak. Sometimes they whisper, sometimes they scream. The wall in Port Harcourt did both. First, a silent plea for attention, then a cry of anguish when it was too late. In its collapse, it asked a question that echoes far beyond the borders of one playground. What is the true cost of neglect? As engineers, as builders, as citizens, we are all responsible for the answers we give. Every wall we raise, every decision we make, is a thread in the fabric of society. When we do our work well, when we honor the codes and the spirit behind them, we become guardians of life and legacy. But when we fail, the consequences are written not just in cracks and dust, but in the lives forever changed, in the futures cut short by preventable tragedy. Let this story be a memorial, not just to those lost, but to the diligence, the humility, the integrity required to build safely. Let it be a reminder that every structure, no matter how simple, deserves respect. In the end, the wall that cried has become a voice for all who have been silenced by negligence. It demands that we listen, not just to the shouts of disaster, but to the quiet warnings, the subtle signs that something is wrong. It reminds us that the lines we draw are not just technical, they are moral. They are the difference between trust and betrayal, between life and loss. So let us pay attention to the whispers in the walls. Let us build not just for today, but for all the tomorrows yet to come. Let us remember that in every brick, in every beam, there lies a promise to protect, to serve, to honor the lives that depend on our care. This is the story of the wall that cried. May its lesson echo, long and loud, in the hearts of all who bear the vital axis of responsibility. Structural integrity matters. Listen, because the next whisper could be the difference between laughter and silence. You are watching Vital Axis, where structures speak, and we are here to listen.